everyone.
Oh, I am. So this is a hybrid training. We have some people that are not able to drive in and join us in person this morning on the web. So thank you all for being here. And I just wanted to say, welcome everyone. And please feel free to grab as much food as you would like for this morning. A bathroom. Do we have signs for the bathroom?
No, but
Yeah, so a bathroom is to your right?
to the right, then take a left.
Left.
It's at the end of the hall.
Thank you, Edmund. You should be doing this. I'm going to hand it over to Ali, who is going to start the training with introduction.
Thanks, Ajay. It's really great to have everyone here, both in the room and virtually. This is our first hybrid training for WISP, so thank you for being part of this pilot in technology for us. We're really happy to have you all here. I know many of you are supporting sites as counselors, and we have some community partners here, and we have administrators in the room, as well as online. And so for those who are less familiar with the Wellness in Schools program, we are part of the Mental Health Student Services Act grant, and it's in partnership with Behavioral Health in Contra Costa County. And our program is about supporting the mental health and wellness of students throughout the county through professional development trainings like this, through our school-based mental health collaborative, which happens quarterly. We also send out a regular newsletter that Edmund has been curating for us in the last 6 months, and that has a lot of resources, including we now have a really amazing virtual wellness room. And then we are really involved with supporting the establishment of mental health clubs, particularly at the secondary level, really focusing on high schools right now. And we are trying to find out what the need is to be able to support you at your sites, particularly around wellness rooms and wellness centers, and providing technical support and connecting folks with community-based organizations that can also support your districts and sites. So we're really happy to be here. This is one of our signature trainings, along with our suicide prevention training, which we'll be offering again countywide in January. And then we also have an LGBTQ training, which is in partnership with the Trevor Project, and that's an ally training, as well as has elements of suicide prevention and the additional risk that our LGBTQ students are facing around suicide ideation and death by suicide. So we're just really glad to be here and happy to have you all here. I'm Allie Cannon. I'm the Wellness in Schools Program Liaison for East County, so I serve all the districts from Antioch to Byron. And then I also am supporting and overseeing our training work. So it's really great to have you all here. And I'm going to let my colleague, who's the incredible Edmund Arnold, introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. If you can't tell from my picture up there, I am Edmund Arnold. I am the Wellness in Schools Program Liaison for West Contra Costa and also John Swett Unified School District. I'm very excited to be here. In my 10 years at the county, this is some of the most exciting work that I've done. I love working with staff in order to help staff recognize early signs and symptoms of mental health symptoms. I was one of those young people that didn't realize that they had depression until I was 19. So this is very important for me. So I'm happy to be here. I'm hoping that we can learn from each other. And thank you for being here with us this morning.
Thanks, Edmund. So we're just going to start out with some community agreements so that we're all on the same page and having community with one another in this space. Just ask that you stay engaged. I know that can look different for different folks, but just trying to stay engaged with being here in the room and with the material that we have to present. Just a reminder around confidentiality, that you're welcome to take the knowledge outside of the room, but not to reference what individual people shared or said, and to respect confidentiality as part of that. We're also going to just be respectful and judgment-free. We know that a lot of these topics can be more intense to engage with, and just respecting that we're all coming from different places of knowledge, and we also have something to learn from all of you as well. So we're really want to welcome the knowledge that's in the room as well as online, and that we're going to expect and accept non-closure. So we're not going to be able to wrap everything up in a bow as part of being here today, and we want to hopefully also just help you get to a further place of inquiry with your learning around mental health and wellness, especially talking about anxiety and depression, which we're going to be focusing on as part of our work today. And so, does there anyone want to add any additional agreements that I didn't cover? Great. Well, we also want to just acknowledge the land that we're on as part of our work, especially around racial equity. That's at the core of the work that the county is doing currently, which is specifically acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory and homelands of the Yakuts, Karkin, and Confederated villages of Lishan and the Ohlone, Miwok, and Muwekma peoples. And so honoring the place that we're at here today and the indigenous folks that are still stewards of this land. So this is our outline for today. We're going to start with an icebreaker. We're going to go into what is mental health, some of the risk factors and stigma around mental health, which is a huge barrier for many of our communities. We're going to talk more specifically about depression and anxiety. We're going to have some breaks built in for you since we're here at a 3-hour training. And then we're so excited that we have an incredible guest here today, Patrick Turner, who is here in the front, and he is the wellness coordinator at Acalanes High School, and he's going to be specifically talking with us about some incredible strategies that he's developed and worked with his team around, specifically intervening and supporting students with anxiety. So we're really grateful to have Patrick here today, and benefit from his knowledge and wisdom and amazing connection with youth in our county. And then we're going to have another break, and then we're going to talk to you. Edmund's going to support you in talking about self-care, because part of showing up and being able to support students and families around mental health is being able to do that work and take care of ourselves as well. So we're going to give you some tools and strategies there, and also get us connected with one another, both in the room and online. And then we're just going to give you some resources, and we have an evaluation for you. Also, Patrick has an evaluation for his portion that he'll be having you fill out at the end of his presentation. All right, so we're going to start with an icebreaker for folks in the room. You're going to have the opportunity to pair share, or in threes for those of you who are at a table of 3 in the room. And for folks online, we're just going to ask you to put your responses in the chat. We're not doing breakout rooms for folks online today, but we do want to see what you're thinking about the different prompts, and we do have a number of different interactive activities that we're going to be doing today, including in Patrick's portion as well. So as we enter this training, we're focusing on the mental health of our students. I just want you to think of a student you've had in a previous year, or that you have had, that you're working with currently, and a student whose mental health either you've supported, or a student who for some reason you feel like you weren't able to give enough support to, so that somehow in my tradition, I'm Jewish, we say it's called missing the mark, and so maybe someone where you missed the mark and didn't feel like you were able to connect in the way that you in retrospect would have liked to, and once you've just had an opportunity to hold that student in your heart, then turning to someone and telling their story. And I'll just share briefly about a student that I worked with in the past. I worked for many years ago at Lincoln Child Center when it was a residential treatment facility. That Lincoln is a huge partner in the county, and I had a student who, she was definitely really had a lot of anger, and her mother would show up sometimes not sober, and just was very difficult to know that she was going through a lot of crisis all the time, and would often feel disappointment. But just thinking about, I was a life skills coach at the time, and just being able to support her and show up for her and be there, even just like as a physical presence when she would be waiting for her mom, and even she would sometimes take her anger out on me, but just remembering like not to take that personally, and how that was just to be there and know that she could have another trusted adult, anticipating that probably it wasn't going to go well, whatever she was needing from her mom that her mom often couldn't give to her, but still knowing that she needed that connection. So I often think of her, and just the struggle with that she had to deal with of constantly being let down in that way. So I'd like to bring her into the room. So yeah, I'm going to give you now a few minutes to think about who your student is, and then opportunity to share with one another. And just for folks online, we're aware that there's an issue with the chat. So if you're not able to write something in, we're trying to address that right now. And hopefully that will get corrected shortly. We apologize. All right, so I'm just going to ask you to wrap up your conversations in the next 30 seconds to a minute. I'm going to bring folks back. It's great to see everyone engaged. That's good. That's good. we like when people are having a good connection. Is there anyone that wants to share anything about their conversation or just kind of what it was like to reflect on either being able to meet a student's needs or not? Well, I'm glad folks were engaged. Sounds like you had some good conversations. And we want to just continue to hold those students in mind as we go through the training and think about, you know, how we're providing support and again, and how we sometimes can miss the mark, and what it is to expand our school sites, our district practices, our community organization practices, to continue to build on the tools that we have to better support our students. And hopefully today what you take away will be part of helping fill in those gaps as we continue to also be able to recognize when students are struggling and get better at that as well. So we have several learning objectives for our time together. We want to recognize the potential risk signs, risk factors and warning signs of a variety of mental health challenges that are common among young people. And specifically, we're going to be focused on depression and anxiety. We want to be able to recognize the need for reducing stigma. And we also want to be able to gain knowledge on how to better be a trusted adult. So part of the practice that you just engaged in was remembering a time when you've been a trusted adult potentially with a student, or might have not felt like you were the trusted adult that you would hope that you could be. And then just how to deal with students specifically who are suffering from anxiety. And as I mentioned, Patrick's going to give us a lot of tools to be able to better intervene with students who need support, specifically who are struggling with anxiety. And then we're going to get some resources that are both local and regional, and as well as some national resources. So just to get us on the same page, thinking about what is mental health? So it affects how we think and feel and act, and it's how we handle stress, and it's how we make healthy choices. And it's connected to, it can certainly be connected and impact our physical health, as well as at times being separate from that. And a lot of times people don't focus on their mental health because they think it's, they've got it under control, and it's not an area that they want to deal with. But that's, we know that there are so many young people, in particular adults as well, who are struggling with their mental health. And that's why we want to be able to normalize, to be able to talk about mental health and wellness, and be able to create more dialogue and language around what is mental health. And of course, how people talk about mental health depends a lot on their family systems and how mental health has been normalized in their family. I mean, even generationally, there's really different ability to talk about mental health, certainly culturally around, we'll talk about in a little bit, additional barriers to talking about mental health. I mean, I know just even in my own family, talking about mental health was very stigmatized. My own mother had mental health challenges. We would call her crazy behind her back until we realized that she actually it needed professional support. And so I think the stigma that comes with talking about mental health is huge, and that can have a range of what that looks like in different cultures. You can go to the next slide. So, a lot of life challenges can feel like they're out of control, and those can be a mental health risk. Certainly academics, pressures that our young people are dealing with around academics, family stressors, social dynamics that students are dealing with. Those are all factors that can be a mental health risk. Additionally, these are some of the other risk factors that can come into play. Having any kind of family conflict can certainly impact mental health. Having a history of mental illness in the family. I was talking about my own family. I know my grandfather also had some kind of mental illness and secretly received some kind of electroshock therapy, but no one ever talked about that. And so I didn't even necessarily know that that was a history in my own family. Having any kind of social rejection certainly impacts mental health, and a lot of our students are dealing with that, especially at the secondary level. Just dealing with any kind of major transition or change can affect mental health. The next one. Any kind of learning difficulties, so not only for our students who are identified as special ed, but many students can have learning difficulties that aren't even acknowledged or aren't known by the staff that are working with them. And again, academic stressors can contribute to mental health challenges, and any kind of trauma or neglect. And so hopefully this training also builds on trauma-informed practices and knowing about adverse childhood experiences, which can absolutely affect mental health. And of course, poverty and structural racism are also can affect our young people's mental health. So here's some data that I'm going to go through in the next slides, just to kind of have us thinking about statistics that we want to look at not only for the county but also nationally. So how many of you are familiar with the California Healthy Kids Survey? Great. I assume that, especially that we have a lot of clinicians here. Basically, the California Healthy Kids Survey, we have the data for 2-year periods. Actually, the 21 to 23 data will be coming out sometime this month, so we don't have that yet. But in this case, looking at school climate and student wellness, and kids are asked about chronic sadness and hopelessness. And the specific question is, during the past 12 months, did you ever feel sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more, that you stopped doing some usual activities? So here in Contra Costa County, these are county-wide numbers, and 16% of 5th grade students said they felt frequent sadness. 31% of 7th grade students experienced frequent sadness. 37% of 9th grade students experienced frequent sadness, and 46% of 12th grade students, which is almost half, said they experienced frequent sadness. Just so folks know, we will be sending you a PDF of the slides at the end, so after the training. So just want to make sure that people know they'll be getting that, both folks in the room and those who are online with us. So this is some additional data. This is from the CDC, which is a youth risk behavior survey, where students were asked that same question. And in this slide, it's disaggregated by gender and race as well as by sexuality. So they don't specifically ask about gender identity, but they do ask around sexuality and sexual contact. And you can see that 42% of high school students felt sad or hopeless. Specifically, a very significant difference in the number of female students who are more likely than male students to experience persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness at 57%. And then you can see also for LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, and questioning students is 69%. So very high. So we know that population of youth is very much at risk. Basically, we know that institutionalized oppression is a huge underlying factor in the why, both for our youth of color as well as for our LGBT youth. And go to the next slide. So just going a little bit deeper into sexual orientation and race specifically, more than half of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and queer students experience poor mental health, and more than one in 5 attempted suicide in the past year. Around looking more deeply at race and ethnicity, 53% of African American youth experience moderate to severe symptoms of depression, and approximately 20% of African American youth reported specifically racial trauma that affected their mental health. Specifically among high school students, this is in 2021, who attempted suicide. Students from American Indian and Alaskan Native was 16%, African American 14%, Latino 11%, multiracial 12% were more likely to attempt suicide than white students who were only at 9%. So I'm just curious, like, what folks think about this data. Any reactions, like how it relates to what you know is true at your own school site? Any questions it brings up, like what you want to know more? How does this data land for you? Whether it's specifically the aggregated data or disaggregated, I should say, or the general data about Contra Costa County. Any thoughts?
I'm always interested when Asian includes all Asian and Pacific Islanders, because I know that if you disaggregate the data, then Pacific Islanders and Southeast Asians have percentages in terms of these outcomes similar to African American and Indigenous peoples. So I think there's a little bit of, I don't know what you would call it, but a leveling of experience in that group. That's not true for many of the subgroups, and I always look at these things.
Thank you, Marilyn. Yeah, that's really important. So sometimes when the data is too broad in terms of referencing a specific racial group, it's not digging deep enough. So thank you for bringing that into the room.
I would say it matches pretty well with what I'm seeing, especially around sexual orientation and gender identity. I would say a good 60 to 70% of the students who come to seek me out for one-on-one support are students who are either transgendered or gay and are unable to talk to their parents about it safely, or they may have talked to their parents about it, but they can't have the deep discussions that they need to, or they just need to share their confusion of how to enter the world. And so, I mean, I'm seeing a lot more struggle there than even in previous years, and I think that some of that has to do with the current environment.
Thanks, Rochelle. Yeah, and we're giving folks the mic in the room so everyone online can hear.
Oh, hi. I was just kind of curious, like, I know this is data that was taken during, it sounds like the pandemic or post-pandemic. I'm really kind of surprised by the female male difference in reporting, and I'm kind of wondering if that was like a pandemic thing, if males just maybe report less, or if that would be the same, you know, I don't know. I'm kind of curious about that. So I have twins who are high schoolers, a boy, girl, and I'm thinking about my son and how he was like playing video games a lot with his friends. So he had this social connection where my daughter might have been like scrolling on social media more or something. I don't know. I'm just that those numbers are interesting to me.
Thanks for calling that out. Yeah.
I just want to share, I had a meeting, Edmund and I had a meeting with the superintendent yesterday, and he was also just specifically talking about what you're saying, most especially increase in social issue on school grounds among girls, bullying, fighting, social media, and all kind of stuff like that. Because we know girls are more like social beings, talk to each other, hang out, do a lot on social media as well. And there are some things, inappropriate things said on social media that then when they get to school, they just get into it, like really have physical fights on school grounds. They even see more physical fights among girls than boys. Thanks.
Thanks, Ade. Yeah.
I guess what stood out to me is the reported high for being African American male. It's just a high percentages. It's basically half your students in a school who may populate your schools. And I work at Alkaline East High, where it's only approximately 45 African American students. But that last line of approximately 20% of them reported facing racial trauma almost feels like it's about 100% because of the assimilation and the cognitive dissonance that they have to display to be a part of these groups, where they either don't self-report or nobody's asking them this direct question that says, have you experienced a racialized experience, that will bring out more of that conversation to them. So I'm pretty sure it may be even that 20% is a lot higher if you were to question students with there's a low demographic of that minority group in the school, that specific question, which would then, to me, increase possibly their severe symptoms of depression that they may be masking to just adapt or assimilate into that culture. But being raised in Contra Costa County myself, is just to have somebody report, or African American students, we kind of mask a lot of our depression or anxiety. We hide those symptoms through survival techniques to have them share out. Even 53% is a high number. So it's really, I would like to know more what we're doing as a community to kind of address that.
Thanks, Patrick. I really appreciate you complicating the specifics of where folks are located.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I feel like another thing you helped me to consider too is if I think about taking the survey when I was in school, I would be really, really scared. Where does this information go? Who's going to know? Who's going to find out what I said? Like, I got to pass this test. So I want to be honest, but I don't want to be too honest. And it just makes me really wonder, like, if this is the number we're seeing, what would be a one-on-one conversation with each student? And maybe these numbers might actually be a whole lot larger than we're thinking. Maybe not, but it makes me really wonder.
So really, so it could be even more impact, even a more heavy numbers, whether it's around race or generally speaking around sadness and depression.
The thing that really stood out to me was looking at the number and the exponential increase between the 5th grade and then going up to high school, and just kind of like that it's constantly moving up. And as a former high school administrator and now an elementary school administrator, like just thinking about like what I see in the elementary school and how, since I have been a high school administrator, I can kind of see where that goes, you know? So it's like an interesting point and place to be in that, like, I feel like I was an elementary school administrator before I was a high school administrator, and now I see different things, do you know, because I have worked in the high school environment. I see where a lot of that is going, and I have a different sort of response about the urgency of responding to things that might not be as high level markers, but they're still there and they're still present. And so I feel like for me, part of it is like having the confidence to name those things that might not be all the way well developed, but that you see that are precursors, right? So how do you really try to help? And just taking it a little bit more seriously when I think about some of the girl drama that happens in 5th grade, right? And like, that is the precursor of those increase in numbers, right? So what can we do? And I think we've been really blessed because we do have a full-time counselor in elementary school that's funded by our parent club, not by the district, right? But how to really proactively create programming that's going to address that and do more proactive social lessons. And we're trying to help the district to build a model of what that could look like to scale up for the other elementary schools, because there's only 3 out of 30 elementary schools that have a full-time counselor. So just really kind of fuel to the fire of what we're trying to do. So thank you.
Thanks, Becky. I think what you're sharing with that perspective of having been at the high school level and elementary also just underscores the need for prevention and early intervention, so that we don't see this arc of building towards such high numbers by the time our young people are in high school. So this is a little more data around LGBTQ youth. This is from the Trevor Project, and specifically around getting mental health care and the top 10 reasons that youth cited for why they didn't get mental health care. Many of those are around concerns around whether they feel safe to talk to a provider, also about fears of being outed. So, for example, like being online for virtual therapy and not feeling safe in that environment, needing to get some kind of parent or caregiver permission to be able to see a mental health provider. So, and then fears of being outed to their family, a fear of not being taken seriously, and then other financial barriers as well, like lack of transportation. And of course, then when you add on like intersectional identities of race and LGBTQ identities, a lot of those numbers become much higher. And then just generally around getting professional help, even for all students, both straight, cisgender, and LGBTQ youth who specifically had health insurance, we know that only 14% actually seek professional help, which is still very low. And then specifically going a little bit deeper into barriers for Black, Indigenous, people of color folks, which we were just talking about some in the earlier slide. Other barriers are not having insurance, stigma associated with mental health conditions, lack of diversity among providers, language barriers, so not having having low cultural competency among providers, and distrust in the healthcare system. Actually, just on my way to work this morning, I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about a recent survey and talking about folks of color accessing any kind of medical professional, and just like people like getting we're like dressing up to go to the doctor just to be taken seriously, and barriers around just being seen at all, or like this ongoing statistic of women in childbirth not being given pain medication and having pain taken seriously, specifically for African American women was being highlighted, and Latino women. And so yeah, I think just like those of us who are white don't even think about that we're not going to get served when we go to a doctor. And so I think just how white supremacy culture operates in any kind of medical interaction is an ongoing barrier, and accessing mental health care is part of that. And stigma around being seen and taken seriously, and having to deal with racism when you're going to just get support for your body, and for your mental health. So of course, stigma is that broad term which is used to describe the negative and stereotypical thoughts and attitudes that people have based on the traits of any person, and of course, in this case specifically around mental health and the language that we use to talk about mental health and mental illness. And so this is a video we're going to watch, which is an animated video that just kind of talks about a student's perspective in accessing and getting support, and how that can be intervened by educators in an educational setting.
Man, when I look at that kid, it's hard to believe that was actually me. I definitely struggled through that time. I was so angry, felt so alone. So hard to make friends. But to tell you the truth, it probably wasn't much fun to be around. I definitely found schoolwork so much harder than most people. Every year I struggled, and it just felt like it was harder and harder to keep up. And there were people, they tried to reach out to me. It wasn't very nice to them. I just lost control. I just felt so isolated. Yeah, things started to change in year 5. You know, my teacher. She just made such a difference. I knew she liked me, even though she pulled me up when I did something wrong. She was always happy towards me, smiling, and showed an interest in me. She definitely noticed that I needed something extra than the other kids. So my teacher ended up calling my parents. She got us booked in with the counsellor, who really listened and got my parents and teacher to understand what was going on with me. Yeah. I don't know what would have happened if my teacher hadn't stepped in when she did. The counsellor was cool. She gave my parents advice on how to help me and spend more time with me and things like that. She was also just a massive help for me too. I was calmer, and hey, I even made some friends. She gave me some ideas on how to manage my feelings and just make better choices. And it worked. It was such a battle up to that point, and things they could have turned out very differently if it wasn't for my teacher. What changed things was someone noticing and taking that extra step to find the right help for me.
All right, so now we're using that video as a jumping off place, we're gonna do an exercise, an activity, and those of you online should have received this prompt, but we will put it in the chat. So this is a scenario, and we're going to be responding to the scenario in small groups in the room, and online you can do this on your own. So our scenario is with a student, we're calling him Jake. He's a 14-year-old boy who used to be cheerful and friendly and curious. He likes to read books and plays soccer and make jokes, and he's a good student who has excelled in math and science. But over the last couple of weeks, Jake's teacher has noticed some changes in his behavior and mood. Jake tells you that Jake's teacher tells you that he seems sad. So this is particularly if you're not the classroom teacher, if you're a counselor in another role as an administrator or community provider. He seems tired and sad and withdrawn most of the time. He rarely smiles or laughs. He doesn't talk to his classmates or participate in group activities. He often sits alone at recess or in the library, and he shows little interest in his favorite subjects or hobbies. He sometimes forgets his homework or doesn't complete it. His grades have gone down, and he has trouble paying attention in class. And so what you're going to do, you all have that scenario in front of you so you can reference back to it. And we're going to go to the next slide. So what you're going to do is on your paper, you're going to draw a gingerbread person. And we're trying to think about what do challenging behaviors look like. So what are the behaviors that are concerning for you about Jake? So you're going to discuss that in your small groups for those of us in the room. And then we're going to have a little time to just share out about what concerning behaviors we came up with. So you're going to write that inside your gingerbread person because we're going to actually use this a little bit later and think about some supports that we can provide later. So here again is the scenario. So you're writing inside the gingerbread person, what are some concerning things that you notice about Jake? And for those of you at home, you should who are online, you should have received a handout that was a gingerbread person. I think we asked you to print it out in advance. And so you can write inside your person, or you can just write some notes, and you can share those in the chat. Would be great. Okay, so we'll give you some time for that activity. Any questions? Great. It looks like most people in the room are done with the activity, so I'm just gonna give, and I really apologize to folks who are on the webinar that this is not as interactive as we were hoping for, but hopefully you can at least do the activities on your own and see if it matches what you're hearing from folks in the room. So we really apologize, and we will strive to improve our technology issues in future attempts at hybrid training. So anyway, so yeah, does anyone in the room want to share what you have in your gingerbread person as behaviors that you noticed and things that you wanted to call out? Maybe a couple of folks can share out their gingerbread people.
Rebecca wrote, so I guess I'll speak. It's just something most concerning things that we saw was just the grades going down and not, well, really the highlight was initially the age and that could be a transition from middle school into high school. It could be the interaction of sports, possibly the connections to friends. If that could be the determinant, the little to no interest in favorite subjects and engagement in class, which kind of describes a different student from the first excerpt to the paragraph, and then also maybe whatever the connection is between the teacher and parent. Has the teacher reached out, or not knowing anything about the family? Does the student have any siblings, or what other engagements that they may be participating in?
Thanks, Patrick. And Rebecca. Anyone else notice anything else that you wanted to call out, or? Great. Yay. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Edmund now. Thank you for all the engagement thus far. And he's going to talk to us more specifically about signs of depression.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you for guiding us through that morning. A lot of data, a lot of good information. So I'm going to take it over. So according to ChatGPT, Jake is a person who's suffering from depression. That was something that we put in there and it kind of spit that out. So I like the Jake scenario because it kind of lists everything that you can see. It's kind of easy to read, but I'm curious as to what about the kids that aren't like Jake? The thing that I liked about Jake was, the teacher, he was curious, he was cheerful, he was funny. Sounds like the teacher likes Jake, right? But what about our other students that don't really show up to class like that? What kind of behaviors are we seeing from those students who are suffering from depression? Do I have any brave people that will offer any other behaviors that they're seeing in the classrooms?
Or not seeing them at all.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, not seeing them at all. We know that these students there's been a big increase in school refusal, especially since COVID. We thought that once we get back in school, kids would be flooding the school gates. They'd be coming back. That has not been the case, right? So thank you. Our kids refusing to show up. Are there any other behaviors? I'm looking for something specific. Not specific, but I'm trying to tee you up. What about these kids that the teacher may not like? I'm just going to say it. When they may see the student and they may roll their eyes in the morning.
Yeah, so these students can look like students that are probably distracted, like talking a lot in class, constantly getting up out of their chair, like going for a drink of water or to use the bathroom, but they're really walking around. And it's a lot of like withdrawing behavior.
You hit them all. I love your nails too. You hit them all. So thank you. That was wonderful. So these are the students who are disruptive, right? I hate that word, but disruptive, right? These are the students who they want to be noticed, but they don't really have the vocabulary or the skills to let you know that they want to be noticed. So they act out. I was this student. When I felt low going into schools in the morning, I knew that I would be happier if I made people laugh. So I was the class clown. I was always disrupting class. I was always lashing out at teachers because I knew that was a way of getting people to laugh. And that laugh was a little slight bump in dopamine for myself, right? So these are the kids that are constantly fidgeting, are kids that get up out of class, right? These are the kids that some teachers would say, none of you in this room would ever say this, but these are the kids that make our job hard, right? So what do we do to support those students as well as the students that show up like Jake? Right, so we want to keep in mind for the students that are easy to fall through the patterns that aren't showing up. We want to keep in mind the students like Jake that we love and adore who show up every day. And we want to keep in mind of students like, let me think of a non-name, Blake, right? Who may be disruptive, who may get up, who may constantly ask to, who gets up out of their seat and goes and talks with their friends in the middle of your instruction. So we want to make sure that we keep in mind all these symptoms and signs, right? So I'm just going to go through the signs, and then if you see any that we're missing, please raise your hand and let us know. But we all know that depression is a constant feeling of sadness, emptiness, or hopelessness. So we know that these students are the ones that may be withdrawn, may not show up because they don't see the point. Why do I need to go to school if I feel like this inside? What is school going to do for me, right? Our high school students will tell you straight up, this isn't going to do anything for me. Why do I need to be here, right? So constantly feeling sad, empty, or hopeless. I'm curious if anyone's seen this in a school or how you can identify this behavior, but changes in appetite that are unrelated to diet goals, such as eating too little or too much. I think this is a little harder to see in school. We might see this at home, so it's always a really good opportunity for us to instruct our parents to be looking for these type of behaviors. This is another one, changes in sleep patterns that can range from insomnia to sleeping too much. This also may be why our students aren't showing up in the morning, right? They're up all night. They can't get to sleep because they have so much anxiety about that test the next day. They have so much anxiety about that person who's been giving them hell, excuse my language, every day, but that is the life for some of our students. There's that bully who waits for me at 8 o'clock every morning. I know my life is going to be hard by going to school. I'm going to stay home. Those are the students that are dealing with that. Feeling fatigue or lack of energy. Again, this goes back to insomnia, or this is just a part of depression. It's just feeling like no energy. I feel like this all the time. I don't want to get out of bed. I have no energy to do anything except lay there. Fatigue, going through half of your day because your brain, you know that your thoughts, it's hard to corral them sometimes. It's exhausting work to be able to do that work, to self-soothe or self-monitor yourself. So it's exhausting. You feel fatigued. And then losing interest or pleasure in usual hobbies. So this is like Jake. Jake was an avid soccer player. You might see him in a Lionel Messi jersey every day. And then all of a sudden he never talks about soccer. Jake might annoy you to the death because he's always talking about scores. And then one day you never hear him talk about scores. That's a sign of concern. Okay. Also, any feeling restless, irritable, or frustrated even over the small issues. I was having tantrums until I was like 17 years old. If I felt irritable, if I felt restless, I would just blow up. I was constantly showing up in schools as an angry young person. I was constantly challenging people because I was irritable. I was angry. I didn't know why. And no one was telling me that there might be an issue with my anxiety or depression. They were just calling me a bad kid. So that's how I reacted. Feeling guilty, worthless, or like you're not enough. I had the blessing of working in court and community schools for 4 years. You heard this all the time. On a daily basis, you would tell a kid, you would hear a young person tell you, I'm not worth enough. There's nothing for me here. I don't see the point of continuing to go on. And this also goes down to frequently having thoughts of death or suicide. And these can range from expressing thoughts like, I wish I were dead, to actually making plans about how to end your life. A lot of times when we hear our students say, I wish I were dead, or it'd be easier for my parents to live their life without me here, some of us are dismissive to that. I've been dismissive to that. I'm not afraid to admit that. Oh, you'll be fine tomorrow. Oh, it'll blow over. This is just a 1 week thing. Before I had the training and the trauma-informed practices under my belt, that would be my response. It's very important for us to acknowledge these young people and let them know that this is something that a lot of people deal with. They're not alone, and to seek out help. It's very important that we try to convince these kids and work with these kids to provide that warm handoff so they're seeking out counseling help. And then we all know depression can have physical symptoms like unexplained frequent headaches, stomach aches, or backaches. So these are the young people that are constantly going into the office. These are the young people that are constantly calling mom or dad or guardian to come pick them up. And we see these are the ones that are always in the office. Okay. Did I miss any? You are all on campuses. You're all at schools. I know I've gone through a list of gamut. Are there any that I may have missed that we want to bring up to the group? Any ways that you're seeing depression manifest in your classroom that I didn't necessarily bring up, or did we hit them all? Is this training fantastic? Okay, here we go. It's not that fantastic, right? All right, all right. Always room for improvement.
Oh, I work at the elementary school now also. I used to be at the high school, but I think in younger kids, sometimes it could be, they could be the bully kid, that they might be doing bullying behaviors.
Yes, kids could be the bullying. I was a bully, believe it or not, with my 5-foot self. I used to like making people feel bad because I felt bad, right? It's like, and then I got a crowd. I got a crowd whenever I was making fun of someone, roasting. In our culture, roasting is very big. So yeah, I that made me feel better. So thank you.
I think we forget, well, really in high school, the student that's high achieving and doing really well could also be suffering from depression as well. They're doing a lot of masking, which then is that the feeling guilty is really, what do you call it, is buffered by their grades. But if they get a B, or if they're not performing to their liking, then that sign of depression can actually lead to the downward spiral. So
Our high achievers, thank you for saying that. Our high achievers are kids that are constantly striving to be the best, right? Those are also the students that have the most pressure on them from home, right? So thank you, Patrick, for speaking on that. And thank you for all those who spoke up. Is there anything else we're missing? We're good? Oh, yes.
I may have missed it, but the substance abuse, so drugs, drinking, anything else too, risky behavior.
Risky behavior, substance abuse. I cannot believe we don't have that up there. But yes, that is a big sign. If you have students utilizing in any types of drugs or alcohol, that's usually a sign that there's something going on. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? See, always room for improvement. I have thick skin. We're good. Okay, so we're just going to keep moving on. So risk factors of depression. I know there's a whole gamut of risk factors for depression. We took the 4 hot ones, okay? So I'm going to put it out to the group again, but we all know biology. I love my dad, but he gave me and my sisters all depression. So it's all something that we all suffer from. We deal with it on various issues. I have 4 sisters. We all have been diagnosed with depression, anxiety. So we know that it is biological. Genetics. Depression may have genetic links, so people who have parents or siblings with symptoms of depression are at higher risk of depression. Ali spoke about his grandfather and his mother. I don't know if that was maternal. I'm sorry. So we do know that it's a genetic link. We know that their perceived social isolation and family rejection. So we see this in our LGBTQ plus students who have been kicked out of their homes, who have been isolated by their family, isolated by their friends, or that fear of isolation, right? We know that these students are suffering from high risk of depression. And childhood trauma, we know this, okay? Anyone who suffered from trauma, which includes witnessing abuse, living with someone with the substance abuse disorder, or having divorced parents, are more likely to experience mental health issues, including depression. Are there any that we're missing? I know we're missing a few. I know this part is always something that we can improve, but are there any risk factors for depression that we are missing specifically for school age, elementary age, high school, middle school age youth? Workout.
One of the things that I noticed with school age children is a physical, if they have a medical condition or a disability, some of those students are sometimes more at risk for mental illness and depression because of their situation. There's nothing they can do about it. They're sick all the time. They can't participate. They're in a wheelchair or they have to do something like that. So they're also.
Right. So our students that are suffering from, yes, disabilities, physical disabilities. Also our students who have, for example, diabetes. We know that students with diabetes have a higher rate of depression. We know that students that suffer from things that take a lot of work and effort to monitor and to take care of themselves, they suffer from higher rates of depression because they just want to be like everyone else, right? So thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. So we're going to go back to our gingerbread person. We're going back to Jake. Okay, remember this is Jake. And I just want to know, what type of supports can we provide to Jake? What type of supports do you have available at your school sites right now that can help Jake deal with his depression? So we're going to take like 10 minutes, work in small groups, write out all those supports for us. And then after you're done, if you could find an open space on the wall to post it, we're going to post it, and then we're going to give people a few minutes to walk around and look at the different responses. And then I want one brave person from each group to just share out, if that's possible. If you're listening online, please just do this on your own. We apologize for our chat capabilities being off, but you can do some solo work, really get in. If you have more people in the room, do it with the people in the room, but just take out your gingerbread person that was sent you on an email. On the outsides, please write the supports that you can provide to Jake. And we will somehow try to get those supports from our people online to share out with everyone else. So we're going to give you like 10 minutes. Let's take about a minute more, finish up the supports, give you like one more minute. $15. All right, let's bring it back to the big group. Originally, I said we were going to post these and then take a walk around. We're actually going to post them up for break. So when you have your break, you can walk around and see what other schools are doing. So do we have any brave souls that want to talk about the supports that we can provide for Jake? Any brave souls? Going once. Going twice. I see no hands. Let's see. Do I have to call on someone? I don't want to call on anyone. They all look so good. No one wants to go? Patrick, can you help me out here?
I'm gonna go to Rebecca.
Okay. All right. Well, we had having the teacher talk to Jake and establish a relationship, having teacher talk to guardians, and then referring Jake maybe to a counselor or social worker. If the school has a wellness center, showing that to Jake, helping him, normalizing his experiences, giving him some coping mechanisms, helping him develop self-awareness so he knows when he needs help, and connecting family to outside resources or making referrals if that works, and then getting other staff on board. He needs a little extra support, creating social opportunities. Yeah, that's all we had.
That's everything. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? Anything that amazing group may have missed? Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm seeing some hands now. My anxiety is lowering. There we go.
So in it, similar to what you guys had, but I also put like maybe a 504 plan with some accommodations. Maybe like for younger kids, sometimes like some sort of mentor that could be on staff that would be checking in with the student, or sort of buddying that kid up maybe with a younger student so they feel like they have, or older student, depending on how old they are. For Jake, he's 14, so I don't know if he'd be 8th grade or freshman. And then maybe like daily check-ins sometimes with the teacher, like just in the morning, like whatever, maybe the first period classes or whatever, just kind of checking in, see how he's doing. Those, might have been.
Thank you. All those supports were fantastic. Is there anything that we may have missed? There was such a good list of things. Here we go. Thank you all for participating.
We have a lot of the ones that people mentioned, but also we have like SEL classroom lessons that maybe like, if we're aware that there's a student or a group of students who are dealing with something, then having the counselor go in and do some like proactive social skills lessons around things. And then also we had like lunch bunch, or again, thinking more like elementary, but maybe in middle schools, they have like a lunch bunch type of thing. Or we have like a alternative recess, indoor recess room at our school, where like sometimes if kids are struggling on the playground and the teachers let us know that, then we'll make like a personal invitation, like, oh, remember that this room is open and you can come over here. And that room has different norms. So a lot of kids who have anxiety like appreciate being in that space that has like different norms than the wild playground, right? Oh, and like we have an after school homework club too. So just a little bit of like after school attention academically, like can sometimes make a difference in their mindset.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you're all taking notes. Just a great amount of supports available, great ideas. Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to share before we keep going? Okay, so these are just some other things that we can do for Jake that you already mentioned in the room. So exactly, show empathy and compassion. Make sure that you're there. Make sure that we instruct our teachers not to dismiss our young people when they come in and let us know about issues that they may be dealing with. Avoid being judgmental, and then validate their emotions. Okay, always validate a kid's emotions. Let them know that they're all right to feel that way. There's a lot more people that feel the same way that they do. We all know this in this room. Encourage them to seek help. Again, we want to make sure that at the end of the day, our main goal is to make sure that our young people are getting treatment. Okay, so again, building up that relationship, becoming a trusted adult so that you can perform that warm handoff. The teachers can perform that warm handoff, and then establishing a culture where this is the norm. All right. Provide accommodations and modifications, so give extra time or assistance. Maybe Jake needs to raise his hand when he's feeling some type of way so that he can access the wellness room or wellness corner. Allow him to have breaks, and then make sure that you have in those wellness centers and wellness corners coping strategies. So do you have coloring books for mindfulness? Do you have any type of meditation opportunities for students to partake in? What type of supports are available for the scholars who are attending your wellness room or wellness center? Okay. Reinforce their strengths and interests. Let Jake know what he's good at and let him know what you're proud of him about performing. Jake, it's great that you showed up to school today. I'm so happy to see you. I love this about Golden Gate. When we had Golden Gate is a community court school that I used to work for. When we had students we hadn't seen for 2 weeks, we would have a big blowout. We'd ring a bell. We let them know that we're really excited for them to see it. I never saw a kid kind of dwell away. They all loved it. They liked the attention. So yes, make sure you celebrate the little wins and then reinforce those strengths and interests. I heard this a lot throughout all of you, which is great. Foster those social connections. So you see Jake kind of sitting by himself. You know who his friends are. Teachers know who his friends are. Try to develop those skills. Also, I think Becky talked about building SEL curriculum in the schools. Building SEL curriculum practices not only with your students but with your staff is really important. And because we all know that research shows that social emotional learning increases pro-social behaviors such as kindness, sharing, and empathy. It improves student attitudes towards school, and it reduces depression and stress among students. We want our schools to be safe spaces, communities of safety for our students. Social emotional learning opportunities in classrooms and for staff are the best way to ensure that this happens. So we're gonna watch a video. I love this video. It gives you, I can come up here, we can talk about signs of depression, signs of anxiety that we see all day, but I really love it when it comes from the kids. These are high school age youth, so they are a little older, but this gives you a kind of like firsthand experience of what our students are suffering from, what they feel like when they're in the classroom setting, if they're specifically dealing with anxiety and stress.
Depression, and anxiety, and also just feeling like I'm not good. Accept me for what I am.
Sadness, stress, depression, anger.
Being anxious, anxiety, fear, anger, and frustration.
Anxiety and embarrassment are the top of the list of very intense emotions that I deal with.
Well, I had anger and heartbreak with me.
Being insecure about myself, like the way I look and like my body size.
Like I usually just like keep to myself, kind of. I'm not really like joking around or anything like that.
I feel sick to my stomach and as if nothing can go right. I feel like just like alone, and I feel like nobody can understand what I'm going through. It just kind of feels like I'm like this
twig that's a walking twig that just goes anywhere and everywhere.
It's just like emptiness, like a gap. Like kind of just like is gone away from my body or something.
You just want to scream. And it's like your life is all one big puzzle.
I get shaky and my stomach gets sick. And my mind is jumping to the worst case scenarios and it's all over the place, jumping to conclusions.
My mind kind of like cramps together in a way, and I can't like pick out each and every thought that I can because it just swirls around, and I can't like grab it and try to work through it.
My heart is racing. I can't speak really clearly. I'm like kind of sweaty and just kind of not looking too great.
I like just get really paranoid and don't know what to do.
Sometimes it's like I get like this knot in my throat because I know that when I'm feeling, I can't express it and I can't say it.
I want to punch everything around me. Like I want to punch a wall, a bed,
And when I take pictures of myself, I kind of use a black and white filter to tell me that everything will look the same and nothing will change.
Take some deep breaths and listen to music and talking to someone that usually helps.
I listen to music, often music that either has to do with the things that I'm feeling or music that will make me feel the opposite of what I'm feeling. And I tell myself that whatever I'm feeling or going through, it's all going to get better and that it will end eventually.
I try to just think positive, have positive thoughts, and say I can get through it. Or I just try to just breathe and just relax.
I usually like write a poem, or like I'll try to figure out some kind of jazz chords to play on my piano to like mellow my mood a little bit. So
I try to remind myself that I'm not the only one who feels this way. I try to cool myself down to make everything go away.
So I love that video. I love how it goes into signs and symptoms as well as it goes into the ways that students self-regulate, take care of themselves. Do we have any other reactions in the room about the video? That I know was hard. This is taxpayer money with all these technical difficulties. But do we have any other group people that want to share any reactions or thoughts about the video that we just saw that was very hard to hear? We will also send this to you as a follow-up so you can share it with your staff. You can watch it on your own. You can share it with your family, however you want to share it. But do we have any reactions? I know it was hard to hear. We apologize about that. Okay. Oh.
I think what stands out to me is like I've heard these things myself, but I wonder about people in my community and I wonder about parents of these teens and wanting to try to help parents see these videos too. And sometimes it might not be their own student, but maybe another student and think, oh, I've heard my child say that. So that's what stands out to me.
And given that opportunity for parents to talk to each other and see these type of videos reduces that stigma, which allows parents to seek out therapy more readily. So thank you for that. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Okay, thank you. We are going to take a break. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back, and then you're going to see our guest of honor give tools and strategies around working with students with anxiety. Thank you for bearing with us this morning. And bathrooms that way, take a right, then take a left. At the end of the hall, we have all gender bathrooms on the second floor. If you're more comfortable using all gender bathrooms, snacks, please take some, or we will have to keep it for the next month. So, and then any questions or anything, Ali and I are up here. So yeah. And for our people online, just take a 10-minute break. We will reconvene at 10:45. everyone. We have like a minute left. Finish up your conversations. Thank you, Kayvon. Okay, to be mindful for everyone's time, we are going to get started, get back started. I think we have a couple people still out on break. Thank you for everyone who showed back up for the second part of the training. Okay. So I have the pleasure of introducing Patrick Turner, who works for the Acalanes High School. He's a wellness coordinator. He is here to talk to our students about supporting anxious students in the classroom. I'm giving him some introduction music. Let's give him a round of applause for being here with us. Thank you, Patrick Turner. Hey.
Why I check my phone like, what? Who's playing this music? That's pretty funny. You guys have an excellent marketing guru manager in Kathy, who pretty much was like, this is something you should do. Give a little background about myself. I am the wellness coordinator at Acalanes. I started out, and I've been doing this role for 2 years now, but I started out as a school counselor at Camp Lindo for 5 years before transitioning into this role as the wellness coordinator. I am pursuing and close to my APCC, then to be LPCC, which is a licensed professional clinician counselor. And I've been working towards that for the past almost going on to 3 years now. The goal is to be able to support students and then to either consult as well as to lead into having a private practice to be able to support the mental health of student, staff, adults overall. I want to say this, that I've done this presentation in person and virtually and in 3 different environments, I think, that have been reflective of how this message is going to be received. I've done it to our teachers at Acalanes High to be able to teach them to be able to support students in the classroom and integrate some of the SEO work into the classroom. I have taught this or presented this to parents at Walnut Creek Intermediate, and to be able to, engage parents in this process and to normalize this anxiety and depression and anxiousness, and just to be able to give them skills at home, as well as I did this at the National Conference for Wellness recently, to just be able to find out different ways. So those were to clinicians who were signed in and wanted to know. Some of the feedback that I got was, this is very reflective, this is very supportive. And then also the clinicians was like, well, how do I use this in my practice and not in the classroom? Honestly, all of the strategies that I'm going to show you all today that I just kind of worked through trying to gather resources, these are applicable for not only in the classroom, but applicable to daily life. And you just kind of take the classroom format and make this applicable towards your life or whatever environment that you are seeing students. So I say that to say you can utilize this in a private practice, in a one-on-one setting, but also supporting students in a classroom format to be able to engage them. So the strategies, just see them as, this is in the moment, and whatever you have a student in front of you, or you're creating interventions for students, see them from both sides of how you can do this. Understanding that the treatment for anxiety is isn't just to make the fear go away, but it's really to manage the fear and the tolerance of this uncertainty. So many times you have a student who's just kind of like, I just don't know what's next. So the unpredictable moments fosters that sense of like, I don't know what is going to happen next. So if you're the person in charge or in support of that kid, how do you be that calm person that is creating this different environment for them to make them relax? The objectives that you all should be able to leave here with, and as I work through, is building a better understanding of anxiety and emotional regulation, understanding the tools available to work with anxiety, and discussing ways to integrate coping tools for anxiety into the classroom. A little bit more about myself. I born and raised in Richmond, California, and so I went to John F. Kennedy High School. Self-disclosure, like I was one of those kids who did not understand why my range of emotions varied in different environments, and I was that kid who was pre-expelled from 2 elementary schools, and then you go into a therapeutic relationship where I saw a black male therapist that was able to foster a stronger sense of self. But one of the number one things for me was to be able to say how I feel. And I think that if you leave from this environment, from anything for me, you should be able to teach not only within yourself to be able to say how I feel, but to instruct students on how to say exactly how they feel. How do you bring that out into just normalize, this is how I'm feeling? Being able to illustrate it, whether it's through a journal, whether it is through them sharing partner, maybe they're connecting them to other outside resources, teaching them how to say how they feel is number one. I wanted to make sure you guys, and so this is applicable not only for myself, but African-American male from Richmond, California, but working in an all predominantly white school district for the past 7 years, making this applicable to all cultures, races, any intersections that pretty much that we support all students. So getting to know anxiety, I appreciate the data that was shared earlier to help to normalize it. Also the instruction around depression, anxiety being that piece of it. I know that we're kind of like crunched for time, but I think just maybe we can make this a place of like sharing out. So not just in pairs and in triads, but asking the question, think about a time that you had a student in class or in your environment that is nervous. Matter of fact, we already did this exercise in a sense, so let's just skip right through. I'm like, oh, we already did this. Understanding the window of tolerance. Overall, you'll have a student who's in front of you. It looks differently amongst each student who's struggling with trying to illustrate their feelings and emotions. So you have the hyperarousal phase, you're the student, or you are really anxious, you're angry, you're out of control. You have the dysregulation where you're starting to feel agitated, you're revved up, you're angry, you're not comfortable, but not also out of control. You have also the other part of dysregulation is you're starting to feel like you're shutting down. You may feel spacey, losing track of time, or feeling sluggish. And the hypoarousal phase again is you're extremely zoned out and numb. How are you trying to regulate that student to where they can both think and feel and be able to cope and utilize the skills that you're providing them to be able to illustrate how they feel or even endure the moment that they're in and be able to step out? So it could be a tool of like, I'm feeling very agitated. I'm going to take a break to be able to possibly get some water. I'm feeling very agitated. I need to go see a school counselor or a wellness coordinator or whoever that connecting adult is that is on your campus to foster that strength or that connection with the student. What does that look like? One of the questions I actually wanted to go back to that we didn't really get is like, I want to know like who's in the room in terms of levels. Like, I know I have a couple wellness coordinators here. Share out, please just pop out your role if that's different from a wellness coordinator. School counselor, mental health counselor. Okay, for Cal High. Okay. High school counselor. We need you. That's great for direction and change for, I think, on a larger scale. But just understanding who's in the room and how do you support, all of these different sectors. Like I said, I was a school counselor, and, we want to remain, focused on academics. But before I get to academics, what is that kid showing up with? What environment are they coming from? The cultural aspect of what did they endure to be able to get to school this morning, and how does that look? You may have a kid who is just everywhere, and you didn't take a moment to meet them at the door to say, like, man, how's it going? And that might change as they present, because now they know, understand that somebody cares. So it could be as simple as that, or it can be, as high level as a 5585. And what are you doing, or what can you do, or what can you integrate in your classroom or within your school to be able to support that? So this is where we're working towards, of how to integrate this information in. You ever seen where somebody's panicking and then you panic too, because you really don't know what to do next, because you're the fear of the unpredictable moment of like what's coming next, you don't really know. Students struggle with that as well. We read energy, they read energy. So if I know you're panicking, do the same thing. When I talk to parents about this, you can almost trace a anxious student back to an anxious parent at times, if it's possible, just because you're modeling different behaviors. If you're modeling that behavior, if you are a parent in this room and you're modeling, you kind of going through your own work, trust me, the kid is as well, that you have at home. So kind of normalize this feeling of how to be able to be present in a moment and understand who's watching you. So even as a teacher, even as a wellness coordinator, if you're sitting in front of you and you have a kid who's illustrating suicide ideation, and you're like, excuse my French, oh shit, this is not for me. Being able to be in an environment that like the kid knows that as well. So how do you model different behavior, check your own self to be able to be present for that kid? Understanding the expectations that they're expecting from you is to be able to get them, to coach them back to health and to safety and to security. But if you're not in that space, then it will illustrate that to the students. So I kind of think of the airplane analogy, meaning that when that boom goes off, it's like put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can assist any children that you may have. When you have oxygen to yourself, you're able to create the same, level of security to somebody else. So keep that in mind. So some tools to work through anxiety. So all of these are strategies, things that you can integrate into your classroom, and then also awareness. So reminding yourself that anxiety is simply just an emotional reaction. Acceptance is critical because you're trying to control the emotion to eliminate anxiety. And name entertainment. So that's one of the strategies we work through, is that working through this version of how to say how you feel is about what's wrong. And if they don't know how to say what's wrong, it's really your job, in a sense, as you're working with the student, to work through that with them. Like it can be as simple as the same exercise we did in terms of the gingerbread, of illustrating what do you feel, where are you feeling it at, how are you experiencing this, what happened before you got here, working through that for them to be able to illustrate what is actually going on in the moment and in the time frame, to make that awareness high level so that they can regulate themselves along the way. Another strategy is to question your thoughts or their thoughts, teaching them to be able to ask the realistic questions to be able to acknowledge what's really going on. So is this worry realistic? Is this likely to happen? If the worst possible outcome happens, what then? Could I handle that? What might I do? What might I do to prepare for whatever may happen? I like to use this example, and I can just see this kid's head pop in my mind. His name is John, and John was a student who came over from Puerto Rico my first year as a school counselor at Camp Lindo, and he came from Puerto Rico due to the hurricanes. And school in Puerto Rico was different from school at Camp Lindo, so the diversity was a problem, was a hurdle for him in a sense. He spoke fluent English, and fluent Spanish. So he was able to transition in. He had a great personality. So that was easy for him to walk into this new environment and just be himself. But one of the first thing he worried about was like, oh, I have these books. What do I do with these books? I'm like, you can take them home. These are your books to be able to do work at home. He's like, I've never had a book to take home before. Everything had to stay at school. But one of his favorite phrases to me, and I keep this as a post-it in my office, is, it could always be worse. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, whatever situation that you're in, it could always be worse. And I make it applicable to almost anything in life, and it's well applicable to this is, whatever you're experiencing in a time frame and in a moment, things could be worse, but what is really happening right now? So for him, it meant that it was worse in Puerto Rico. I'm now in Moraga, and I'm two different worlds. The stresses are different, but it could be worse. I could have, not made it out of this horrific circumstance. And so he's 10 times. We're still friends to this day. So another strategy is naming it in this moment, right here, right now, everything is okay. These are all strategies if you are like envisioning working with a student who's spiraling out of control, who is, the breathing is not regulated. They are questioning everything that is happening and not making it applicable to the moment. Put it here, right now, right here, right now, everything is okay. You become that calm adult that is modeling a different behavior for yourself, for your friends. I say students, but these are things that we all struggle with on a daily basis, to be able to normalize or endure life. You're just trying to make this applicable to support students and strategies in this environment. The worry timer. When I did this at the wellness conference recently, one of the clinicians was like, this is not realistic because I have 5-year-olds who won't sit still in my kindergarten class. I'm like, okay. So they're like, so you're just going to set a timer for 30 minutes or 10 to 20 minutes and let them kind of worry away and then I'm like, well, make it 5 minutes. Make it applicable to whatever time frame you believe is applicable for your student or for the audience. But for me as working with high school students, teaching them that 10 to 20 minutes that they set every day, whether it's just during the school week or on the weekends, that they know that, at 7:30 p.m. every evening, I have 20 minutes to journal write about all of my worries. And then at 20 minutes, when that timer goes off, we're going to step out of your room, your environment, putting away this exercise, whether it's watching some, TV that is suggesting a different reality that you just kind of came from, or, you are going outside to go work on your craft with this practice, or it's maybe to go and engage with your parent or a sibling or a friend. You're going to change your environment to where that marker at that timer, you're going to go and do something else. You're teaching them it's okay to worry. It's okay to understand and to jot down your fears and your transitions. But when you're done with that, I want you to put that aside. You'll be able to come back to this tomorrow. You can continue the worries if you still have the same worries tomorrow. But in this moment, I want you to go and do something else. And I think that also is, you're applicable to your kid who is really engaged and, maybe spiraling into these things, but you're able to say, like, let's do this and transition to something else. You may be at that 20-minute mark if you're working with a kid and you're like, all right, pen down, let's go do something else. They're like, I'm not ready yet. All right, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. But this time, 5 minutes, we're going to go and do something else. I'm going to pick you up. We're going to walk out of the classroom. We're going to go into another environment. Work through their level of comfortness. And then, because the next time you do it, they'll understand that, like, oh, we're going to transition to something else. Same thing if you're dealing with the little children in the carpet in the classroom in the corner. You're saying, like, this is one moment. They're going to move on to something else. As a teacher, if you're integrating any SEO work, these strategies can be applicable in a journal-free write at the beginning of the classroom on a Monday. What happened about your weekend that you want to highlight, or what good or bad that you want to illustrate? They have a journal-free write. Maybe share out. Maybe they keep it to themselves. But we do this every Monday at this time. transition to a new assignment. So it grows them as a student and just teaching them for one moment in their day or in their week to write to themselves about their experience. That worry away thing is like the kid who has high OCD, who is struggling with trying to move on to something else. They're gonna be like, I don't want to stop. You got to work through it with them. Another activity that you can integrate into your classroom is, creating this worry timer. So you're giving them, 3 minutes for that student at the time frame, but also you're working through this at either 3-minute marker or your 20-minute marker. During that worry, after their worry, they're going to share out. How likely is this the outcome? What's the worst that could happen? What could I do to support you? You're providing and being that person and comfort. Maybe they're open to sharing that information with you. So you're navigating that conversation with the students so they're not sitting with this alone. Questions, thoughts about this activity? Applicable to your classroom or environment? Positive self-talk, affirmations do a lot. I got a lot of words on me in my own life through tattoos. As you think, so shall you become. Fearless. I do this for my own level of comfort within my life and reminders along the way, but also you may have, a student who's like really struggling with trying to find something great about them. So one of the things that I use is like, write down 5 things that you really love about yourself. You might have a kid who's like, I think of nothing. I don't know. It's cool. Google positive self-talk images. Click on that. Here's many words that they can say. Just look on this and let's find, 3 words that could be applicable. I don't know. Okay. Has anybody said anything good about you? Well, I heard one time that I have a good personality. Oh, let's write that down. I've heard somebody say that I have, I'm person that they can share all their problems with. Well, let's write that down. You get those 3, I just tell them to take a picture of it. If they have a device, take a picture of it. Make this your wallpaper in your phone, so that every time you pick up your phone, you swipe to kind of access your phone, you'll see these 3 or 5 words that say, "This is who I am." And so that, or at least one person has said this to me, or I have this one exercise that have 5 words that describe who I am as a person. Another exercise I did was, it was 5 words that was said about them, or that they say about themselves, and 5 words that they wish that somebody would say about them. So it's not just the strategy of how I see myself, but I wish somebody would say that I'm a great person. I wish that somebody would say that they love me. I wish somebody would say, these are the things that they now are talking to themselves, and then maybe they can envision finding a way to just do this with everybody, or to maybe work towards that, and maybe they're putting it into the atmosphere so that they can get it back. But I think it's great to illustrate that, because honestly, this is their words to themselves, and maybe reflect that back, not in a moment, because they may not be ready to accept that this is the things that they need to hear or to feel, but to be able to put that in the moment to say hey, I know we didn't revisit this, but I just want to let you know that these are 5 words that you should want to hear and do. And maybe we can talk about where you want to hear it from. Who do you want to hear it from? And maybe work that around. So you're just creating dialogues and conversations to allow them to be able to feel, to be able to express themselves, whether through different strategies and different applicable methods along the way. I kind of remind myself sometimes when I'm presenting, or I'm anxious, or I'm nervous, to take a deep breath. And then I was like, oh, let me Google images of this. And then I'm like, what is this thing called? I didn't know what it is, but I just know that as a kid, we were using this to make a wish, right? Not even thinking that dogs may pee on these along the way. But we were like just grabbing them and we're just kind of like making these things applicable to your life along the way. But we were doing this to make a wish. We want to create a different reality. When you are exhaling, you're like pushing out that negative energy into something positive. Little techniques like this, taking a walk, grounding techniques, taking the shoes off. I had one of the students where I took my shoes off, took my socks off, and I'm like, let's walk through grass. They're like, nah, I'm not taking my shoes off. But when they saw me do it, they were like, it was worthy for them to try it. And they really didn't get it in the moment, but later on, it was calming for them. They didn't understand why. Honestly, I had a black kid who was doing it, and he was like, why was I? We don't do that. I'm going to be honest and frank. He's like, as white people, that's not what I do. That was his word directly. And I'm like, do you feel better? And this was teaching him something that was different and out of his comfort zone to be able to step into a new reality of a therapeutic relationship. He didn't really want to do it when nobody else was able to see. Class was in session, but these were things and techniques that I was able to introduce to him, you know, and he related it to when he was once at the beach and walking through the sand and water kind of rolled up to his feet. And he's like, oh, this is that one time and this is a moment. And so using techniques like walking through grass to help you feel like you're grounding, taking a walk and finding a dandelion and being able to exhale in a moment creates a different reality, and reminding any student, any person that when they're in crisis to take a deep breath, because the oxygen is not getting to your brain in a moment, is affecting your thinking. It's affecting how you move next. It's affecting how you feel. So if they're able to take a deep breath, maybe they make more conscious decisions before they move forward in spiraling thoughts. Grounding activity, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Applicable for almost any engagement, any environment, you know, with a student or an adult. This is forcing a spinning and anxious mind to reorient and come back to the present moment. So, excuse me, you're gonna, you know, ask them to name 5 things that they see in their current classroom or environment, even virtually. You know, somebody at home is like, okay, look around your current environment. What do you see? Do you see a window? Do you see a chair? You're naming 5 things, right? Four things that you can touch or feel with your body: a chair on the back, feet on the floor, fingers to the table. 3 things that you can hear in a moment, and processing, you know, system over there, or a clicker, or my voice. 2 things that you may smell or taste in a moment, and then asking them once again to take a mindful breath. So this is just reorienting them to the moment and the time frame. And that student who's sitting here spiraling out of control because they don't know, that first thing is like, but what do you see? And then also the second thing is, what can you feel? The control to be able to cross your mind and your body. So you have a kid who's like, I'm having a heart attack. You're like, oh, you're having a heart attack. Okay, well, I want you, if there's a mirror or something in the room, can you touch your left shoulder? Yes, I can. Okay, well, can you touch your right shoulder? Yes, I can. Can you touch the top of your head? Yes, I can. I want you to say these things that you're doing it. They're doing it. And there's like, well, if you Google you're having a heart attack, you won't be able to do none of those things. So that's not one of the things that you're experiencing right now. You may be experiencing a panic attack. You normalizing this for them in the moment, that anxiety or that anxiousness, whether it's because I'm gonna take a driving test, or I'm taking a test, or I wanna, you know, impress somebody. I'm experiencing all of these things. These are all normal moments for them. So being able to normalize any of this information to make them feel like, oh, I'm not experiencing something that everybody else hasn't. I'm just doing it possibly for the first time or the millionth time. And I'm trying to find out a way or a strategy to endure. How to transition. I think the study earlier was put towards, 2021 data. And I think the first time I kind of was working through this presentation was around that time frame. So a lot of the virtual environments, and we were, as counselors in that time frame, trying to engage students virtually. You're like, hey, log onto the Zoom and do your work. You're like, and I'm gonna just stay here in this platform, or log into the Zoom and tell me how you feel. There was a barrier there in that environment, but majority of times when I'm working with a student, they had fears about the teacher performance. So, a kid who was going through anxious thoughts, something is going wrong and I can feel it. Being able to reframe it and providing a coping thought, I don't know what's going to happen. These things have happened to me before. What could go wrong in a sense. I can't stand being stuck at home. And then flipping it to, I've been through more difficult things, I'll survive. Um, I don't want to disappoint my teachers or counselors or wellness coordinators um, or legislative person. Trying to please everyone is impossible, especially when all of us are learning daily, and let's work on letting it go. So teaching them in that moment, in the time frame, that you're not disappointing. You're working through this just like I am. PDF is a resource that I found online that allows a student or an adult to be able to categorize ways for them to be able to organize their life in a sense. So the first column is playtime. So the description of it is freely chosen, unstructured time, not just for younger students. The research behind it is play is linked to increased cognitive skills, physical health, self-regulations, social skills, and empathy. Tips: help student avoid overscheduling, pursuing hobbies, and interests just for fun and spend time outdoors. The downtime when you're working with a student is, time set aside beyond the structured activities to just relax and reflect or just be. Research behind it is youth need downtime throughout the day for their physical and emotional health. And then some tips: making sure that they get 8 to 10 hours of sleep, which I never get, 9 to 11 hours for K through 5, and naps count. Turn off immediate 30 minutes, 60 minutes before bedtime. And I highlight when I'm talking to students about this is that last image that you see is most likely something you're going to dream about. Or you can't put the phone down because you clicked on such and such page and you just follow whatever their comments were, and it just kept you up another, right, exactly, rabbit hole. Or, you have a student who is like, everybody's badgering about this. Let's just turn off your social media, deactivate that for a moment, and what can you do? Can you put the phone down? So teaching them these techniques. Family time, necessarily the word family is going to lead to what you have in a traditional format. But it can look to, family being your friends, your connection pieces. So making sure that you're aware when you lead that information to them, like spending quality time with your family or friends or wherever your circle is, without a technology or without a device. It creates a sense of connection. The research behind it is more likely to feel supported, safe, and loved, and have increased self-esteem, leading to better academics. Some of the tips is that 20 to 25 minutes at least 5 times a week, building traditions and rituals, and maybe it's a walk at the end of your day or right when you get home from school, creating a different norm with a group that can foster a stronger sense of self and connection. Working with students and or staff, it's the lack of control that is creating a sense of anxiousness or a sense of not being able to do what they think they can do. Is how do you, what can you control? How do you protect yourself? How do you protect others? Your mind, your body, what you consume. So going back to that social media effect or going back to your circles, if you're around a negative group, most likely you'll be a part of that as well. How we doing? How any of these strategies seeming applicable to life? All right. Any way to be able, let's just say like somebody in the room, can you envision doing this with a student if you're working with students? So let's integrate some resources to the classroom. The things now we jumping really fast. See, it went from like a 10-second delay to speeding up. The things that we talked about earlier was the name entertainment, positive self-talk, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, questioning your thoughts, the mindfulness, coping thoughts, worry timer, walking, focusing on control. These are all things you just went through, that I just went through for you, really quickly. And but also these are things that you normally as an adult have endured in terms of your resilience to get to this point today. Being able to normalize it, to be able to structure that for students, is what the ideal goal is. What you can do in your classrooms or your environments. Once again, that name entertainment, positive self-talk, questioning your thoughts, positive self-talk, reflective practice. You know, in my office, on my body, you have all of these positive affirmations that help to lead. So sometimes a student can think, I think I have one that says just "you can," and just normalizing that positive thought process towards achieving something, um, just reminding them. So that's something as simple as that can help too. Now I'm gonna make you just turn and talk to each other. In this quick moment, please answer these 3 questions. It won't be 6 minutes. I will do, how much time I should have? 2 minutes? 2 minutes? All right. 2 minutes to turn and talk about what are the ways you can integrate some of these tools into your regular classroom or your environment. What ways might it help? And what fears you have about implementing these tools. And I'm going to call on some pairs to share out. If it goes longer than 2 minutes, it's okay. 10 seconds to wrap up your thoughts. Share out anybody. I can't call on myself, so. And then Edmund just left the room. Go for it.
I was thinking about how I can share these tools with some other staff members who are also working with students like in our wellness centers.
Yep.
To be able to share, a quick idea, like not engage in any huge discussion, but trying to really model some techniques or some of these strategies to empower students.
Challenging question. What fears do you have about implementing?
I think them buying in or feeling overwhelmed in terms of like, I want to teach all of the students this, but there's 27 of them.
Yep.
So how do you do that in a short amount of time?
Yep. Cool. Somebody else?
That's right along the lines of what I was saying too, of bringing it to others on our team. There are times like all off-site.
Yep.
The only one in our wellness center. So then if she's with the student, then her intake, and there's like work to do, the worry time for different things that kind of give, then it removes that barrier of feeling like, I don't know if I have the skills to counsel the student.
Yeah.
But I can do, same with our admin team.
Yep.
And having, whether it's a disciplinary issue or health issue or whatever it is, that they can still have those escalation tools and hold that time and space with them without feeling like counsel them.
Is that, you would say it's a part of that fear of admin saying like, I don't have those tools as well, just like, that's a theme. It's like, oh, you're the mental health person, you're the only person you can manage it. You're like, honestly, we deal with each other every day, and this is a normal process. That's why I wanted to normalize this experience for parents, students, staff, so that they're not like, oh, I can't do this because I'm not the wellness coordinator. Anybody else? How do we make this applicable towards the elementary school level? The elementary admin in the back.
Well, it's interesting when you're talking about the strategies you had used with that one student about walking across the grass and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was making me think the scenario I had shared with everybody earlier was about a student. One of the first activities was like taking a student, right? We have one student at our site who has some pretty significant challenges and recently told us, you're doing a good job of fulfilling your role as a school counselor. Wow, that was very specific praise. But I think we've been working with this student for a year and a half now, and last year, he really trusts us.
Yeah.
That, knowing that we right? It's not we're not gonna do the same.
Yeah.
But he knows that we're a team together, so I think that's important too. When I talk to my counselor, I get this kind of service, and then when I talk to the administrator, I get this sort of response. You know what I mean? It needs to be integrated together. And I think that's part of how we've been able to affect some change on our campus, because they know that whether the first person they interface with is pros or with me, we're going to be together in our response. It's not going to be, there's the administrative, the disciplinary side, and we're together because we're going to do it in our story. But I have the first one to do the best way of doing that, and I'm in a lot more challenging circumstances than I do right now, so I don't have that panic part.
Yeah.
Right? So that student recently, he was really upset, as mad as I've ever seen him, because the new duty supervisor decided she was going to take all the 5th grade boys and give them a talking to, and he tends to have a lot of paranoia that people are calling him out, and he didn't feel like he did anything wrong, so he did the right thing and came to the office, but he was so mad, and I had him come to my office, and I just literally just said, just come in here and just breathe, and I breathed him until I could hear his breathing regulate, and then he said something what are you gonna do for Christmas? He was trying to make that. I was like, okay, we can talk about that, but I think it's one of the feelings, right? It's not that compartmentalization. Everyone has a different role.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the reasons why I kind of like hearing that there's an admin in the room, because they are in a position to offer discipline at times, which can also trigger a student, that can also lead to them in our office. And there's a fracture there. It's like, I don't want to go to the admin because they don't care and they don't listen. But if the admin kind of was able to listen and reflect back to their experience, is teaching them, or even work through a breathing exercise with them, it will help to foster a stronger sense of connection. No matter what level or what segment that we all are in this room, it's the collaborative method of like, one person is leaving, somebody else can pick up the slack with some of these strategies that basically makes it applicable. How do you address this in a classroom and in your house at the dinner table? Are you taking a walk? Are you having a conversation during downtime? Are you creating these interventions of support? Are you teaching your kids to be able to illustrate how they feel to you or to anybody else? Are you modeling anxious behavior, and are you okay with the student telling you like, "Mom, calm down"? Like, that is a different level of experience, because I think that also fosters their growth, their development, their acknowledgement. Who knows you better than the kids who's watching you every day? So I think in that environment and this strength, no matter whatever the cultural background is, the intersection that may be, the age from 5 to 18 or even older, these strategies are applicable towards this process. And how do we like put this in play to make this more applicable for them for the future? Question? Yeah. Yeah. Teachers, thanks for sharing. Teachers and all of us adults that are working through this, we're human too, so we experience these things, and how to normalize it, how to make this applicable to your life. That was the whole goal of the presentation. And last slide is, I'm open to feedback, so I'll try to find ways to be able to do it. So if you can use your phone to just zoom in on this QR code, and here's a survey. I'm gonna share it with them so they can take it and be able to utilize this information to create better interventions for you all. Thank you.
We will make sure, Patrick, can we share your slides? We will make sure, I had to ask for permission before just offering his material that he worked so hard to develop, but we will share out these slideshow slides. So repetitive, it's almost that time. So you all have it, you all can utilize it how you want, share it with your admin, however you want to use it. So we will provide that for you in a follow-up email. So go ahead and take some time, fill that exit survey out, and we will transition into our next section. And thank you, Patrick. There's a lot of great tools that we can use. Thank you. I went to your conference presentation at the Student Mental Wellness Conference, and it was one of the highlights. I actually used the name it detainment because I was just like, yeah, just name it, sit down with the worry timer, and then positive self-talk is something that helps for me. So like you said, we can utilize these strategies with our students, but we can also use them ourselves. So I appreciate you for that. Thank you. And since we're stressed on time, we're just going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Sorry you don't get this last break, but you guys are out of here in about 20 minutes. I'm going to talk about self-care a little bit, but I'm not going to be up here and preach to you how to take care of yourselves, because I'm pretty sure we're all aware of that by now. We know that self-care is a big common theme that we hear around. I know I hear it a lot in Contra Costa, like how do we teach self-care strategies to our students? But I think we often miss how do we teach self-care strategies with our staff that we work with. So just know self-care means taking the time to do things that help you live well and improve both your physical health and mental health. And if you can't read this quote, it's not selfish to love yourself, take care of yourself, and to make your happiness a priority. It's necessary. Patrick used the analogy, the airplane analogy. I also like the analogy, you can't pour from a half-filled cup. So it's very important for us to be making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and supporting one another in an effort to make sure that we feel good so that we can provide these supports to our students. We know that we are, it's our students' role model off of what we do. So a lot of times when our students are coming from a traumatic home or coming from a home that there's a lot of issues and they come to school, they're trying to get away from that. So what do we do to work together to make sure that that community of that we are establishing is a community of safety? So we'll keep going. I don't know how Patrick got a clicker and I didn't, but so 5 essential self-care strategies. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to sit up here and preach, but we all know it's sleep, exercise, eating well, relaxation, which is my absolute favorite, and connection. We're going to focus on connection, okay? Because a lot of times as a liaison, a big thing that I'm hearing in West Contra and John Sweat Unified is that staff often feel like they're doing this alone. Right? You all mental health professionals, you're often given most of the task, and then the other people put their hands up and they kind of step away. So how do we move away from that to make this a community, everyone working on this towards a common goal, right? And it's not just a handoff and me backing off and be like, that's your job now. I don't do that. I don't do that. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to implement strategies that staff can use to build up connection with one another, because that connection with one another, in our opinion, will make it a lot easier to work together and establish that sense of community. So it's very important for us to be intentional about providing opportunities for us to get better acquainted with one another and to determine as a community what we need to create the best environment between us so we can all benefit from the time we have together. Connection is very important. I'm an introvert. I like to be by myself, but I also know that social connection is something that I crave like maybe once a month. But it is important, right? So we're going to do an activity, all right? We're going to try this. This is something that I'm going to plug this right now. My boss today and we're going through restorative practices training. We will be finished with our next T4T training on Tuesday. So we will be ready to will that out next year. We can come work with your staff in order to incorporate restorative practices at your school. So what does that look like? Community building circles. How do you do that? How do you run that? So that will be available soon. And we will let you know if you sign up to our newsletter, you will get information about that. But we are going to do an activity really quick that was incorporated in this training, and it's an opportunity for you to provide this to your staff, suggest it to a principal, suggest it to admin to do in order for you to build that community with your staff. So I'm going to ask if you feel comfortable to stand up. So in a moment, I'm going to play some upbeat music. I apologize if any of the music is offensive. I try not to do any gangster rap. I'm a big gangster rap fan. There will be no gangster rap in here, okay? I try to be... just full disclosure, I am a rap R&B only enthusiast. So working with my partner last night to try to find music across all cultures was something that I really wanted to do. So I'm going to play some music and I want you all to mill about. So walk around the room. It's very important that you acknowledge each other. So when you make eye contact, you nod, say hello. This is just, we're trying to build that sense of like when you see someone, you don't look away really quickly. You don't look down really quickly, or you don't run away in the other opposite direction. So I'll play the music. I will stop the music. I stop. You will form a group of 3 or 4 around you, the closest to you. Okay. If you go more than 4, you're going to be in trouble. Okay. I will then announce a connection prompt, and it's all going to be on the topic of self-care, and you will each have a turn to answer that question. I'm going to try to give you as much time as possible, but we will get you out on time. And then I'll play some more music, and then we'll continue to do it, and we'll continue to do it. You'll get into the rhythm as we get to do it. So do I have any questions or anything? We good? Did I explain that well? I'm getting anxiety about the time crunch, so excuse me if I start speaking really fast. I tend to do that without using sentences. I would just go, 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 go. So I would do that all the time. So I'm trying not to do that right now, but here we go. Okay. So we also have a WISP playlist that we will share with you. Please, it is for, we have mental health, positive music on there. I can't seem to find it right now. See, this is the anxiety taking over. There it is. Okay, so here we go. So you're going to mill about all right, find your group, find your group. Remember, if there's more than 4, you are in trouble. Just kidding. You can have more than 4, it's fine. So, okay, our first prompt is, I lost my, where's my tech person? Okay, okay. All right, so our first prompt is introduce yourself, name, title, school district that you work for, your years and you worked in your current position, and what is a self-care activity that you have done that's worked for you, and do your best to convince your group that that's the best self-care activity in the world. Go ahead. If you are viewing this online, please feel free to take pictures of any of the instructions. Please feel free to, we will send out the slideshow. Thank you for bearing with us. Unfortunately, we did have some issues with the chat, but we will make sure that we forward all this information to you so that you have it. And then we will get through this activity, and then we have resources, and then that's it for the day. So thank you for everyone who put up with Teams today. We appreciate you. wrap up your conversations. Make sure everyone has had a chance to share. I gave a little bit longer time than I usually would, but there's some great conversations. No one's even noticing my instructions right now. I tried to play the music to try to see if I could get anyone's attention. If there's some really good conversation going on. We have 10 minutes. Usually I would play another song. You would mill about, find another group. We would share on what are you planning to do for your mental health over winter break. Then you would, do you want to do, oh, there's, okay, we can do it. Go. Find a quick group, real quick, real quick. Okay, group up, group up. What are you planning to do for your mental health over winter break? That's speed round, speed round. Make sure you finish up your conversations. Let everybody have an opportunity to share. Make your way back to your seats, please. Go back to your seats. Yeah, go back to your seats. Thank you. Thank you. Was that okay? Do you see yourselves doing that at the staff meeting, or is that something that can be incorporated in a classroom? Yeah. You want to say something? Or just okay, sorry. No, I won't do it. Okay. So yeah, that is something that we like to do to build community within staff, right? Like I said, I am an introvert. I hate talking to other people, and I hate talking about myself. But that's always just fun prompts, easy prompts to get people out of their shell, get them to talk to each other. We're just building those relationships between staff. Just some other quick things. I'm going to go through this really fast. So these are other things that are happening in Contra Costa County that we want to highlight, that are things that are community care. So what are schools doing to take care of their staff? So of course, like I mentioned, Patrick mentioned briefly, so community building practices during staff meetings. So these are restorative practices. These are your community circles. Establishing values as a group together is something really good at, or a strategy that you can utilize to build buy-in from everyone, right? Staff wellness centers and rooms. So I know we talk a lot about wellness centers for students. Carquinez Middle School has established a dedicated private space where teachers and school staff can take time to tend to their mental health needs. So it serves the same function as a wellness center, except it's just for staff. Going to be honest with you, there are some issues with it. There's certain teachers that utilize one space all the time and don't share with other people. So it is a work in progress right now, but it is something that I did want to highlight. Check-ins. I'm going to call her out. Becky was my principal at my previous school. She was really good about checking in with staff. She would come in with a big smile on your face, no matter what was going on. She would let you know you're doing a good job, give you some input, give you some kind of guidance on how to deal with students. So that doesn't necessarily have to be an administrator task. That can also be a mental health person staff task. We had a really good social worker at my time there who made sure that she checked in with all the staff members and troubleshooted how to work with students with them. So that's a lot of work, but it is something that I saw really benefit our community schools teachers. And then building a community of support. This is like not on all one person. I'm going to read this quote that's going to sound really downer. I am a downer. I try not to be like that all the time, but this is a really powerful quote to me. Mindfulness is not going to help with the kinds of structural problems that stretch school staff beyond their limits. Just telling a teacher to breathe when they haven't had a break all day is not going to help at all. So it's really important for us to work as a community to establish systems so that we are allowing our teachers and allowing our mental health staff and allowing our admin to be able to practice self-care throughout the day so they don't feel overwhelmed, they don't feel burnt out. So if you need help with that, if you need assistance with that, reach out to a WISP liaison and we can help you with that. That's what we're here for. We don't have time to do office stretches, but now we're to the end. Yay! Woo! Resources. This is when my anxiety starts to release from my body because I'm done. Okay, so Erica's Lighthouse is something that's very important. We love Erica's Lighthouse here. This is where we get a lot of our curriculum. So if you're looking for easy to obtain, free things that you can share with teachers, staff, please utilize Erica's Lighthouse. Take a picture of that slide. You just type it into Google. You can go straight to that website, sign up for the resource portal. And again, like I said, they have depression, how to know the signs and symptoms of depression, how to work with kids on suicide ideation. They have a whole wealth of resources, printouts that you can give to teachers that will help them recognize signs and things like that. Erica's Lighthouse is amazing. So please make sure that you take a picture of that. Keep it on. And like I said, we will send out the PowerPoint, so all that will be incorporated in there as well. Contra Costa Crisis Center, say that 5 times fast. This is something that we're really proud of to be partnering with. As most of you know, 211 is our end-all be-all for finding services. Also, the 211, if you instruct students to use 211 to call if they're having suicide or if they're in a crisis, 211 will assign a healthcare professional to them. It's 211 basically will route them to 988, and we'll go over 988 in a second. You can also text HOPE to 20121 and it's also available in Spanish. Something that I really want to highlight that Contra Costa Crisis Center has done. Recently, we had a suicide from a student at Pinole Valley High School. Pinole Valley reached out to the Wellness in Schools program. We were able to connect them with Contra Costa Crisis Center. They went out to Pinole Valley High School. They established like it's not a mobile response team, but it's like a space for students to be able to go out and process what happened. And they did include crisis counselors at the time. It was there for a week. And tonight they're actually having a Zoom for parents, specifically on suicide ideation, suicide prevention strategies that they can use at home. So if you do run into an issue like that, or if you just want to do some preventative work, please reach out to us so we can connect you. They do parent trainings, they do staff trainings. Please check our newsletter because we also have their trainings that they provide for school staff and for just the general public. 988, I talked briefly about 988, but just know that the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline provides 24/7 free and confidential support for people in distress, provides prevention and crisis resources for you and your loved one, and best practices for the professionals in the United States. This used to be the suicide hotline. It was transitioned to 988 like a year ago. But this is what we tell our staff that we support to make sure that the students may have note of this. Patrick, we put this at the end. I don't know if you want to talk about this real quickly. Thank you, Patrick. And again, we will send a slideshow out so you'll have it. We are trying to do our best to connect high schools to sponsored mental health clubs. There is a stipend available from these clubs for if you establish a mental health club for high school specifically. So if you're interested, this is the work that we're really focusing on this year. Please let us know and we can help you guide you through that process. Bring Change to Mind is wonderful. So make note of that, please. And then these are just other mental health clubs that we can connect you with. Ali showed data from the Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance System. If that's something that you are interested in exploring more, we do have a QR code for that. We'll also send this to you so you all have access to it. I know how much people love data. And then finally, we are the Wellness in Schools program. We appreciate you for being here today and spending your morning with us on this very important topic. We want to support you in any way possible. Please reach out to us. If you like this training, we can provide these types of trainings to your school for staff. We can also provide trainings for parents and students as well. Please sign up for our newsletter because we do send out any resources that we come across. Please also utilize our website. We'll make sure to send that all to you in the follow-up email. And our website has a gamut of resources that you can use in a wellness center, in a classroom, and other places to help support students. And I don't like to beg, but I love my job. So you completing this evaluation will help me keep my job. So, but please let us know how we can improve the training. If there's anything you really liked, if there's anything that you're like, you could do better in that, we have thick skin. We're always trying to improve our trainings for our people that come to them. We want to support our community. We want to make sure that we're up to date with everything. So please fill that out if you get an opportunity to. And then again, this lets our funders know that we do have people coming to our trainings so that we can continue to do this work. And then my manager wants to say something.
Now, I just want to add if there's any other trainings that you are interested in, we still like us to so.
Thank you. And thank you, Patrick, for being here with us. We really appreciate you, especially last minute, coming in and supporting us with this. Again, if you want to be connected to Patrick, we will connect you with Kathy, because that is the person who will connect you with Patrick. So thank you all. If you have any questions or final comments, let us know. You want to say anything?
I just thank you everyone for it was great.
Thank you. And for those online, thank you for bearing with us on Microsoft Teams. Please make note that Microsoft Teams did not work with you in our evaluation. And then we will make sure that we will fix that for later. This was our first hybrid training, so thank you for being patient. We will make sure to follow up with any information that was reviewed, and then please email us with any type of suggestions, comments, or concerns. Thank you.